We are back here on 843 TV, and our friend Andrew has joined us with all kinds of loot from Bourbons and Bubbly.
Yep.
We're talking a little bit now about development, about grants, about donations, about some of the things that you do. And I think it'd be fun to chat a little bit about are you called the Director of Outreach, really?
Development. Yep.
What does that do? What does that look like?
Yeah.
What do you really do?
Yeah. So our funding as a nonprofit is kind of broken down into 3 buckets. So we have individual and business from the community.
Yes.
We have special events or fundraisers, or Bourbon and Bubbly. And then we have grants. So out of those 3 is how we get our revenue as a clinic. And that revenue runs the clinic with our volunteers. That's the funding that we need. So my job is to kind of fill those 3 buckets accordingly with funds.
Well, it's been interesting because we were talking to Pam a little bit about the new echocardiogram machine that you got, and how, you know, that bucket was full, you got that money and purchased that, and then it required a little bit more.
Right. So the thing about grants, and grants are fantastic, we're super fortunate to live in an area that they're generous, there's communities, and we have a good relationship with them for grants. The piece about grants is that most of the time they're restricted funding, which means for this echocardiogram machine, we put a grant in for the Community Foundation of the Lowcountry for an echocardiogram machine. They were super generous, gave it to us, but then we had to spend that on the echocardiogram machine.
Correct.
So that's a restricted fund where we use it for a project, but it's got to stay within that project. Pam, our executive director, does a fantastic job of accounting and keeping all of that within that piece. So now that we have the echocardiogram machine, we can't spend that money on something else outside because it's just for that. So as you mentioned, we got the machine, but there was a little bit of extra added on that we didn't realize we needed at the time. And then in practice, once you have it, we have to kind of grow with that. So we wrote another grant for a technology piece for the echocardiogram machine, which again was funded gratefully. So now we can buy that technology to store more information for patients so we can run more tests on that machine.
And that makes so much sense. So that's kind of the grant piece. And if you've never written a grant, it is not an easy thing to do. So I salute you for that. They are tough.
For good reason. Yeah. I mean, these people are giving a lot of money to somebody that they may or may not have met, and they want to make sure that their dollars and cents are being spent the right way for a good organization. So we're happy to do it. I totally understand why. And it's easy to write about this place. I mean, they get into the narratives of as you mentioned, there's usually a narrative of what you're doing as an organization and why you need the money. And when we get to that point, it's pretty easy to sell because the volunteers and doctors here do such fantastic work.
So that's sort of one silo or one bucket that we filled. The next bucket, actual fundraising.
Yep. So Bourbon and Bubbly is our biggest fundraiser, our only real fundraiser throughout the year. It's a gala that we throw in May. We sell tickets, we have auction items, we do Fund the Need. It's a really great event, but that's a very intensive process. So we're sponsored. We have a lot of sponsors from businesses who help get it underway. We also have donors who give the auction items, which is super helpful to raise those funds. So we sold about 280 tickets this year. For the event, so we had a good turnout. It was a rainy night, but we made it work. So we had a good turnout. The participants in the room were extremely generous with giving Fund the Need funding, if you will, and then our auction items went for sale as well. So that is unrestricted giving.
Okay.
So that type of funding we can use, and the donor is giving us the freedom to say, this is for you, use it as you need within the clinic, which is super important for a multitude of reasons. I mean, some grantors or restricted funds are obviously for specific things.
Sure.
The other piece too is it gives Pam and our board the flexibility to say, oh my goodness, look what's growing, look what we need, do we have funds that we can put into that? And with unrestricted, we have the ability to do that and kind of be proactive and grow with the community around us for what they need.
It's pretty exciting. And that leaves our third bucket that we need to fill, and that's basically private donations.
Correct, yep.
Talk to me about that, because I would imagine that's challenging.
It is challenging. So we're very fortunate again that we have a good donor base and donors who come back year over year. And that's really just asking, usually our big ask at the end of the year with our annual ask, where we send out letters to our donors and say, here's what we're doing, look how all the work we've done, will you help us? You know, X amount of dollars we'll buy 30 A1Cs, X amount of dollars we'll buy an MRI, and kind of do it that way.
So you help guide me with specifics. It's
right.
Okay.
Yeah, just to kind of give you an idea of what your funding goes toward or what it could amount to. And that is really what we send out to the community that we have in our database. As you mentioned, one of the challenges is growing that database. We have donors in there now, but we're always looking for more donors, for new donors, for those who are interested. And while funds are one piece too, we're always looking for volunteers, gifts in kind. So just being involved, being an ambassador for the organization is important too.
And I think that's a really important thing that you just said. Dollars are wonderful and they are needed, but volunteers equal dollars.
That's right.
And gifts in kind, things that you can give.
All goes toward the budget. Exactly.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense from a volunteer point of view, Pam said that you have fantastic, but always need volunteers.
That's right.
It is a treat to talk to you.
Thank you. You too.
And he works his buns off. So it is great to see you. Stay with us.
Thank
There's more
you.
to come here on 843 TV.